Welcome. Tonight, we journey not into the thundering wars or royal courts of the medieval world, but into something quieter, something more enduring. You are not a knight, not a king, not a merchant, a mother, or a prisoner. You are a monk, and the monastery. Thick-walled, cold-stoned, perched beside a river or forest, is not a place of chaos, but of rhythm. A rhythm that hums beneath every hour. A bell for waking, a bell for eating, a bell for praying. And when the bells fall silent, only then does time feel real again. Imagine walls covered not with tapestries, but with shadows. Chalk-white cloisters that echo your steps. And books, sacred, slow, copied line by line under candlelight, books that will outlive you. As you settle into sleep, allow yourself to settle into this world as well. You are inside a monastery, and the bell is about to ring. Chapter 1. Bells Before Dawn. You are asleep when it begins. Not deeply, but enough that you no longer feel the straw beneath your back. A wool blanket rests heavily over you, scratchy but warm. The air in your cell is cold and still. Somewhere outside, the trees are stirring, but within these thick stone walls, there is only hush. Then, the sound. A low, single note. A bell. It is not sharp, nor rushed. Just one tone. Deep, like breath in a cavern. And though it is meant for all, it feels like it's rung only for you. You open your eyes. Your room is nearly dark. A stub of a candle has burned down beside a small wooden crucifix on your table. Its flame trembles, casting long shadows across the unadorned stone walls. There are no windows in your cell, only a narrow slit high in the wall that sometimes admits sunlight. But not now. It is still night. You sit up slowly. Your bones creak. You are young, perhaps, but not rested. No one in the monastery sleeps deeply, only enough to begin again. You dress with care. A long brown robe of rough wool, a rope cincture around your waist. Your feet slide into sandals, already worn at the toes. You splash water on your face from a small ceramic bowl, cold enough to sting, but you do not flinch. You are used to this now. Outside your cell, the corridor is quiet. Another bell echoes, softer, as if deeper inside the stone. A few doors open with soft creaks. Others remain shut. The older monks are allowed to stay in their beds during matins, the early morning prayer. But not you. Not yet. You walk slowly. The stone beneath your sandals is worn smooth. The hallway arches above you, ribbed like the inside of a great ship. You pass a window, the first one in the corridor, and glimpse a sliver of the pre-dawn sky. Dark blue, no stars. A mist clings to the fields beyond the wall. The chapel doors are open. Inside, only a few lamps burn, enough to light the way forward. The smell is familiar, melted wax, old wood, faint incense from yesterday's prayer. You enter quietly, head bowed, eyes low. The monks are already gathering. They do not speak. Voices are not meant for this hour. You take your place on a narrow wooden bench, hands folded in your lap. Your breath is visible in the chill. One by one, the monks begin to chant. Psalms. Latin words you now know by heart, though you once fumbled them. It is not a performance, it is a rhythm. You kneel, then sit, then stand again. Sometimes you lose yourself in the voice of the others, in the echo of the vaulted ceiling, in the flicker of the lamp shadows on ancient stone. You are not meant to think during matins. Not about yourself, not about yesterday, not about sleep. Only the words, only the silence between them. This is how every day begins, not with the sun but with sound, not with food but with faith. And though your eyes burn with tiredness, you do not leave early. You do not fidget, you do not speak, because here, in the chill of the chapel, beneath the weight of ancient stone, you are not a boy, or a man, or a name. You are a monk, and the bell has rung. The chant slows. Voices linger at the ends of verses, drawing each syllable out like the last breath of night. You remain seated, eyes low. There is no time here, only rhythm. You've stopped counting the days. You live by the bell. The psalms shift. One monk leads, the others follow. The cadence is ancient, written by men who lived and died long before your monastery stood. The words do not change. You say them again and again. In repetition, you forget yourself. That is the point. A lamp gutters near the altar. A breeze, perhaps. Or something older. You do not look up. To your left, Brother Elias coughs once into his sleeve, then stills again. He is the oldest here. His hands tremble when he holds the hymnal, but he never misses matins, not once in your memory. His breath rattles faintly. You listen for it between the chants. The chapel is colder now. The stones seem to tighten with the hour. You press your palms together, feeling the heat leave them. Across the room, the abbot rises. He does not speak. He simply raises his hand. The chant ends. A long pause follows. This silence is different, heavier. It presses against your skin like snowfall. Then the bell rings again. Once, briefly. The first round of matins is complete. You rise with the others, feet stiff from stillness. The bench creaks as you leave it. You walk slowly toward the chapel doors, head lowered, shoulders relaxed. A few monks remain behind, assigned to keep the lamps lit until lauds. You are not among them today. The hallway is darker now, lit only by slits of blue-gray light from the courtyard. You feel the air change as you walk, warmer near the kitchen walls, colder near the garden cloister. You pass a row of statues, half-shadowed, their faces turned toward the stone. One looks like it watches you. You do not stop. You return to your cell. Not to sleep. That hour has passed. The rule does not allow rest between matins and lauds. Instead, you sit on your cot, hands in your lap. You breathe. Sometimes you recite the morning passage aloud, just once. A single verse to anchor the day. Other times, you simply wait. The candle is nearly gone now. Its light stutters, then holds. In this moment, you feel outside time. The others are all doing the same, sitting, watching flame, listening to the silence. Then, from far away, another bell begins to stir. Lauds is coming. You stand. Again. No one tells you to, but you go. Chapter 2. Words in the Dark. You walk slowly toward the chapel again. The corridor is still dim, but the light has changed. No longer black, but deep blue. The kind of light that comes just before sunrise. The kind that touches stone but does not warm it. The bell for lauds is still ringing. Steady, slow, never rushed. You count the tolls unconsciously. 10, 11, 12. Then it stops. You pass a window slit. Outside, the world begins to shift. The courtyard grass is pale with frost, silver in the half-light. Beyond the walls, the forest holds its breath. You see the shape of a bird perched on the gatepost, unmoving. Even nature seems to pause for this hour. The chapel glows ahead of you. Not with fire, but with breath. Dozens of robed forms are already there, their presence turning the cold air visible. Each monk stands in quiet stillness, heads lowered, hands together. You join them. The stone underfoot is damp. You feel it through your sandals. Above, the vaulted ceiling disappears into shadow. Thin vertical windows line the chapel, tall and narrow like reaching fingers. Through them, faint gray light spills across the floor in long bars. Dust drifts through the beams like slow-falling snow. The chanting begins again. This time, it is gentler. Lauds is a lighter prayer. It greets the new day, not with joy exactly, but with acceptance, gratitude, humility. You sing softly. The syllables roll from your tongue without thought. Your lips move, but your mind drifts. You think of the ink waiting in the scriptorium. of the turnip soup you'll have for dinner, of the birds in the cloister garden, how they never seem to leave, even in winter. The abbot reads from a leather-bound book. You recognize the passage. It speaks of labor and patience, of obedience, of mourning. You've heard it more times than you can count, but today the words feel different. Maybe because you barely slept. Maybe because today is your name day. But no one here celebrates name days. You lower your eyes again. Time passes unnoticed. You kneel. You rise. You kneel again. At one point, a wind rattles the chapel door, but no one turns. There's nothing outside these walls that concerns you now. A single candle goes out. No one replaces it. The shadows shift, and the faces around you blur into outlines, each monk identical in posture, in movement, in silence. You realize how little you know of them. Some you've lived beside for 10 years and have never heard speak, only chant, only pray. Still, there is comfort in this sameness. It is what brought you here. The final psalm drifts into silence. No signal is given, no word spoken. But all monks begin to bow their heads in unison, one slow, fluid movement. The hush that follows is not empty, but full. It is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of peace. The abbot closes the book with both hands. Its cover creaks slightly. The sound echoes through the tall chamber like a whisper. You feel your heartbeat more clearly now, as if it's synchronized with the rhythm of the prayers. You breathe in, deeply. The air is dry from candle smoke and ancient stone. Outside the chapel, the frost is beginning to fade. The light through the window slits has shifted to pale gold. It doesn't warm the stone, but it paints it. Shadows lean differently now. Morning has arrived, not in fanfare, but in permission, to move, to begin again, to work in silence. The monks file out slowly. You follow, steps soft, soles brushing the worn floor. No one looks behind. No one needs to. There is no urgency. The day will stretch as long as it must. As you exit into the cloister corridor, you feel the chill of the open walkway. A faint wind moves through the columns. The cloister garden in the center remains still, frozen dew sparkling on the grass. A sparrow hops once across the stones, unbothered by your presence. You pause for a moment to look upward. The sky is now pale blue, streaked with gray. Clouds hang motionless as if uncertain. You know the hour by the birdsong, faint, cautious, just beginning. The bells will not ring again until terse. For now, there is no sound to guide you, but you know where to go. Your feet turn toward the refectory, where the first meal of the day will be taken in silence. You walk slowly, feeling the air grow warmer as the passage nears the kitchen walls. The scent of barley and boiled greens drifts faintly in the air, not strong, but familiar. You pass Brother Odo on your left. He does not look at you. He never does. But you nod slightly anyway. A small act. Quiet, respectful. Inside the refectory, the benches are arranged as always. Long, smooth wood, scarred by age. You take your seat beside the window, hands folded on the table. The monks file in, one by one, robes rustling like leaves. Each man sits in the same place as the day before. Nothing is assigned, but everything is known. The meal is simple. Barley bread, slightly dry. A bowl of warm broth, more water than vegetable. A tin cup of weak ale, not enough to intoxicate, only to warm. No spices, no salt. You eat slowly, methodically. You chew each bite with care. No sounds are made but the scrape of spoon on bowl, the soft clink of cup to table. A monk stands at the lectern near the front. He reads aloud while you eat, not his own words, but scripture. His voice is steady, never rushed. He does not pause for breath in the middle of a sentence. He does not look up. His reading is as much a ritual as your meal. You don't always hear the meaning of the words, but the sound is comforting, like rain on stone, like wind in old trees. familiar, patient, and dry. When the reading ends, the monk closes the book. The room holds its breath for a moment, then resumes the quiet sounds of eating. When your bowl is empty, you place the spoon across its top and wait. When the abbot rises, so do you, and together, in rows, you leave the room. No thanks are spoken. Gratitude is shown, not said. Chapter 3. Bread, Silence, and Ink. The scriptorium smells of wax, wood, and old ink. You walk in slowly, following the others. No one speaks. No one needs to. The sound of sandals on stone fades as each monk takes his place at the long wooden tables arranged beneath narrow windows. Their glass is cloudy, letting in only the softest morning light. You choose your seat by habit, not instruction. Your station is simple. Just enough space for a sheet of parchment, a candle holder, and the heavy quill that waits where you left it yesterday. The bench creaks slightly beneath your weight. You run your hand once over the tabletop, tracing grooves left by monks long gone. A thin stream of smoke rises from the nearby lamp. You adjust its wick and lean forward. Work begins not with command, but with movement. Your hand reaches for the ink pot. You dip the quill slowly, wiping its tip just enough to avoid a blot. Then, gently, you lower it to the parchment. One stroke, then another. The letters emerge, angular, slow, deliberate. They are not your words. They are older, holier. This is not writing. It is devotion in motion. The silence in the scriptorium is thick, not oppressive, but complete. You hear only the scratch of a dozen quills moving across parchment, the occasional shift of robes, the soft breath of the monk beside you. Every sound is small, and yet each one is perfectly placed in the rhythm of the room. Hours pass without measure. You write line by line, forming careful letters with a monk's patience. Each stroke must be perfect. One mistake, and the entire sheet must be redone. You have made such errors before, on long days or cold ones when your fingers ache, but not today. Today, your work is clean. The candle flickers as a draft creeps in through the window. You lower the flame's guard and lean closer to your page. Your eyes blur for a moment. You pause, blink, refocus. It is not fatigue, it is simply the weight of so much stillness. You stretch your fingers beneath the table. The tips are stained dark with ink. Your back protests the bench. Your legs long for movement. But still, you do not rise. The monk across from you turns a page. You glance up briefly. His brow is furrowed, lips moving silently as he copies scripture. You wonder how many pages he has written. 100? 1,000? And how many will be read? How many will be hidden in vaults, never opened again? You return to your own parchment. A breath. Then the next word. Then the next. Your hand cramps. You pause, not to rest, but to steady the quill. You curl your fingers beneath the sleeve of your robe, warming them gently. The cold in the scriptorium is not sharp, but constant, like the quiet. Always there, always waiting. Outside the window, birds flit between the bare trees. You do not watch them long. A moment only, enough to remember the world beyond the walls still moves. Then, back to the parchment. The light shifts as the sun rises higher. It creeps across the floorboards in golden streaks, landing on sandals, robes, sleeves stained with years of ink. It climbs the legs of the desk slowly, as if reluctant to disturb the sacred stillness. The bell does not ring. It will not ring for some time. And so you write. You are copying a passage from the Gospel of John. It speaks of light and darkness, of beginnings and words. You've written it many times before, and still, the letters never feel routine. Each curve must be shaped with care. The spacing must be exact. The margins narrow but untouched. Sometimes you feel the meaning rise through the ink. Subtle, not overwhelming. A quiet sense that these words have weight beyond sound, that each letter you shape is a kind of echo. You breathe through your nose, steady, silent. The monk beside you shifts. His candle gutters out. Without a word, you lean forward and tilt your flame toward his. The new light catches quickly. He nods once, barely. A gesture so small it's almost nothing. But it matters. You return to your own work. Another page. Then another. Hours slip by. You lose the sense of time, not because you're tired, but because time here does not speak loudly. It hums, faintly, beneath the surface of everything. Eventually, you set your quill down. The page before you is complete. Each letter sharp and even, each margin clean. You blow gently across the ink, ensuring it dries without smudge. Then, with both hands, you lift the parchment and place it into the drying rack near the window. There are other pages waiting there, some yours, some not. A small warmth flickers in your chest as you see your work beside theirs. Not better, not worse, just part of the whole. You return to your seat and stretch your fingers again. The candle is lower now. The sun has risen just enough that natural light fills the room. The candles, once essential, are now a flickering afterthought. Soon they will be snuffed, and when they are, the day will shift again. A monk stands. Without a word, he lifts the heavy bell that rests in the corner and strikes it gently once against the wall. Lunch. Without speaking, the others begin to rise. You follow. As you leave the scriptorium, you glance back once at your desk. Quill still resting where you left it, ink pot half full. You will return. Always. Chapter 4. Cloister Shadows and Quiet Gardens. The cloister surrounds you in a perfect square. You walk slowly along its covered edge where stone columns rise like ribs around a garden at the center. The roof above is wooden, aged to gray, and creaks softly in the breeze. Your sandals tap the flagstones with every step, echoing off the arches. You are alone for now. The others have gone to their assigned labors, some to the kitchen, some to the stables, a few to mend robes or clean the guest hall. But today, your duty is reflection. Time alone in the cloister is not a reward. It is a practice. The garden inside the square is humble. A square of grass edged by herbs, rosemary, sage, mint. Low shrubs bend under the weight of morning dew. In one corner, a pear tree leans slightly, its limbs thin, its fruit small. No flowers, just green, always green. A monk sweeps the path ahead of you. You've seen him before, though you've never spoken. He moves slowly, patiently, as if each fallen leaf is worthy of careful removal. His broom is handmade, twigs bound with twine. The sound it makes is soft, rhythmic, not unlike the sound of a quill. You pass him quietly, head lowered. The air is cooler in the cloister than in the courtyard. The stone keeps it shaded, still. You smell moss, faint lavender, and earth. The scent reminds you of the garden beds behind the refectory, where Brother Raymond grows medicinal roots. As you reach the far side of the cloister, you pause. A stone bench rests beneath the arches. You sit, carefully, smoothing your robe as you do. From here, the view is framed perfectly. 4 arches, 4 beds of herbs, the tree in the center. You listen. There is no bell, no voice, no footsteps, only the sound of the broom, the wind brushing across the garden, a bird calling from beyond the wall. You close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep, but to listen more closely. The wind shifts. It carries the scent of smoke, faint, likely from the kitchen ovens, and something sweet. Perhaps Brother Michel is drying fruit again in the loft. You remember the way he sliced pears so thin they curled at the edges. The sweep of the broom continues behind you, so steady it could be mistaken for breath. You rise from the stone bench slowly, careful not to disturb the quiet rhythm of the garden. Your robe shifts as you move, whispering against the stone. There is a peaceful weight to this place, one that settles on your shoulders as much as in your thoughts. You begin walking again, continuing the cloister's long rectangle. The shadows beneath the arches stretch outward now, softened by mid-morning light. Nothing here is rushed. You pause by the southern wall. Here, ivy has begun to grow between the joints of the stone. Not wild, but allowed, trimmed just enough to stay respectful. Brother Anselm tends this wall. He prefers it to the garden, says the stones tell more truth than soil. You don't know what he means, but you've never asked. There is a low bench near the wall. You take a seat once more as a breeze begins to move through the columns. The breeze is thin, almost hesitant, and carries the mingled scents of sage, cool stone, and drying earth. Far above, a bird whistles just once, a short, clear note, and then the silence returns. You rest your hands in your lap. The knuckles are ink-stained still. You've washed them twice already today, but the black remains. No one will mind. In this place, stained hands are not a flaw, but a kind of devotion. Across the square, another monk enters the cloister. You recognize him, not by face but by gait. It's Brother Caldus, the infirmarian. His limp is mild but constant. He carries a small clay pot wrapped in cloth, likely balm for someone's swollen joint or a tincture for aching lungs. He walks slowly, choosing the sunlit parts of the path. His presence doesn't break the peace of the space. It settles in, like another line in a long, quiet chant. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sun warm your cheeks. There is no sound but wind through herbs, the distant creak of beams overhead, and somewhere deep in the monastery, the faint clatter of a spoon against wood. It is too early for lunch. Likely someone preparing bowls. Perhaps for guests. You are not assigned to the guest house today, but you know its rules. Fewer words, warmer meals, smoother beds. Opening your eyes again, you rise and move along the final stretch of the cloister. This side runs closest to the refectory and kitchen. A thin line of steam rises near the tiled roof. You smell boiled root vegetables, maybe onions, maybe leeks. The aroma mixes with the rosemary from the garden and becomes something round, earthy, something safe. You turn and face the garden once more from the final angle. The square looks whole now. Each plant carefully placed, each stone evenly spaced. It's not a grand garden, not a show of wealth or variety. But it is tended. It is consistent. The kind of beauty that comes not from decoration, but from faithfulness. No one outside the monastery will see it. No visitors come here, and yet every day someone sweeps it, waters it, pulls weeds before they bloom. You walk back along the path to the center edge. The pear tree catches your eye again. Its branches are spindly, and the fruit that hangs low is dappled and small. You remember one summer a few years ago when it bore so many pears the bough split. No one scolded it. The limb was bound in linen and supported with a carved stick from the woodshed. The stick is still there. Now, each pear is picked early, before it weighs too much. The tree is no longer asked to give more than it should. The bell for terce rings in the distance. 3 slow tones. Not urgent, not loud. You turn back toward the cloister door. Your walk is quiet, measured. You trace your fingers across the wall as you pass, rough stone warmed by sun. The monastery hums around you again, subtle, low, alive. You reach the door, press your hand against the worn handle, and step inside. The hallway darkens slightly. Behind you, the cloister remains lit. But the garden doesn't ask you to stay. It simply continues, patient and still. Chapter 5. The Rule of Saint Benedict. The library is cold this morning, not with the cold of wind or water, but with the quiet chill of old stone and older discipline. You walk softly across the flagstone floor, past rows of shelves that rise like ribs into the arching ceiling. The air smells of parchment, beeswax, and dust. Every movement here feels watched, not by eyes, but by the words of those who came before. At the far wall, beneath a narrow window of colored glass, rests a carved wooden cabinet. Inside it is a single volume, heavy, bound in dark leather, locked with a tarnished clasp. The key rests nearby, tied by twine to the shelf itself. It is time to read the rule again. You kneel before the cabinet, lift the book carefully, and carry it to the central table. The wood groans faintly beneath its weight. Its pages are thick and uneven, edges darkened by hundreds of fingers. You open it slowly, reverently. Not because you're told to, but because something within you expects silence here. This book governs your life. Each hour you rise, each word you speak or do not speak, each bite you take, each robe you wear, each night you sleep, has its order, its place, its measure. Nothing is left to whim. Nothing is personal. That is the point. You begin to read aloud, softly, only to yourself. The first degree of humility, it says, is obedience without delay. You do not flinch. You've read this before, many times. And still, each time you read it, it settles in your stomach like a stone in water. There is no warmth in the rule, no softness, but there is structure, and in structure, peace. You read on, about silence, about labor, about the danger of laughter. Only the foolish raise their voices in mirth. You pause there. You remember once, during your first year, laughing too loudly at a mistake in the kitchen. Spilled flour, you think? You were asked to kneel in the hallway afterward. For an hour. No rebuke, no scolding, just stillness, just waiting. You turn the page. The rule speaks now of pride, of the prideful monk who seeks recognition, the one who hoards knowledge, corrects others, speaks too long at meals. That monk is not to be trusted. Better to be silent, obedient, unnoticed. You glance around the library. Only Brother Theodoric remains. He copies from a psalter near the west wall, his head bowed, his hand steady. He does not look up. He has never sought attention. He is favored by the abbot, not for his skill but for his quietness. You continue reading. The rule is not a story. It does not entertain. It shapes. It tells you what you are allowed to desire: peace, humility, purity, obedience, and it warns you of the rest: ambition, attachment, curiosity, vanity. Even joy is to be contained. Not extinguished, but quieted. Outside, a crow calls. You close the book slowly and sit back. There are moments when the rule feels like a wall. Tall, hard, unyielding. But today, it feels like a rhythm, a slow chant, like matins. It doesn't ask you to think, it asks you to follow. And there is comfort in that. You return the book to its cabinet. The leather creaks as you close it. The lock clicks gently into place, as if it too knows the ritual. You tie the twine around the key and bow your head briefly, not out of habit, but because no one watches. And still, it feels right. As you walk back through the library's arched corridor, the air grows warmer. A window ahead lets in streaks of midday light. Dust floats lazily in the beam. You pause and let it pass over your robe. The rule lives in words, but it also lives in moments like this, in silence, in routine, in the space between bells. Your feet carry you toward the dormitory hall. Not to sleep, but to sweep. Today's labor has been assigned. You lift the broom from the peg by the door. Its bristles are stiff, angled, not a tool of punishment nor of pride, just one more part of the rhythm. You begin at the far wall. The stone floor is uneven in places. Bits of straw cling to the corners. You work slowly, pushing the bristles forward with even pressure. There is no rush. The rule forbids idleness, but it also forbids haste. Every motion must have its weight. Every task its due time. You sweep in long arcs, pausing only to adjust your grip. Across the hall, Brother Adalbert tends the windows. He wipes them with linen, folds the cloth with care after each pane. He hums softly. Not a tune, just breath shaped into motion. As you sweep, you recite in your mind the passage from the rule on labor. Idleness is the enemy of the soul. Therefore, the brothers should be occupied at certain times in manual labor. You know it by heart now, not because someone forced you to memorize it, but because repetition has worn it into you, like water into stone. There is no pride in knowing it, only steadiness. A spider's web glimmers in a corner. You pause. Then sweep gently around it, careful not to destroy it. It poses no harm, and something in you feels the web has been built slowly, with care, not unlike your day. The bell rings once in the distance. Sext, midday prayer. You lean the broom back against the wall. It will wait for you. You brush your hands clean against your robe and walk toward the chapel, passing monks who also move slowly, in silence, from their tasks. You sit once more on the hard wooden bench. The psalms today are shorter. The chapel is warmer now. The sun has moved above, casting soft white light through the high windows. The air smells faintly of oil and lavender. A bird outside calls twice, sharp and quick, then is quiet. The abbot reads from Proverbs. You listen. The words are familiar. They echo the rule. Speak less. Give more. Avoid complaint. Love the rhythm of your life. You look down at your hands. Ink still in one crease. Dust beneath your fingernails. Perfect. After the prayers end, you walk through the hallway that leads to the refectory. A tray of bread has been set out. The noon meal is small, simple loaves, soft cheese, a bowl of stewed lentils. You eat in silence, seated in your place. The monk at the lectern reads from the rule again. His voice is quiet but steady. Let the brother who is late for prayer stand at the door, waiting until the service ends. Let him come in low and bowed, so all may see. You chew your bread slowly. You've never been late. You finish your bowl and place the spoon down gently. There is no signal, just stillness, a kind of silent agreement that the meal has ended. The bell rings again. Nones is near. The rhythm calls you onward. But for now, for this brief space between bells, you walk once more to the cloister. And in the still garden light, you sit, just to breathe, just to be. Chapter 6. The Voice of Hildegard. You are in the scriptorium again. The sun is lower now, casting a warm, golden light through the clouded windows. Shadows fall across the desks in long diagonal stripes. Your place is set as always. Quill, ink, a sheet of prepared parchment weighed flat by 2 small stones. But today, the work feels different. Today, you are copying something new. The abbot handed you the manuscript this morning. It came wrapped in cloth, sealed with wax. A gift from a traveling abbot, he said, from the Rhine Valley. A text written not by a monk, but by a woman. You were surprised, though you did not speak. Her name is Hildegard. You had heard the name once before, whispered during a mealtime reading, mentioned by a visiting scholar. A nun, a visionary, a woman who saw music, who wrote letters to bishops and emperors, who dreamed of gardens and stars and sang them into being. You unwrap the manuscript slowly. Its pages are delicate, tinged with green-blue dye. The script is small, exact, unmistakably different from the ones you know. There are notes in the margins, tiny stars drawn in gold, vines curling around verses. You stare for a long time before dipping your quill. The first words describe a vision, not of angels or battles, but of sound, of luminous tones echoing in light, rising from the mouth of the earth and curling into the sky. You copy them carefully, letter by letter, your mind working to understand even as your hand obeys. The Latin is familiar, but the meaning feels deeper. It does not instruct, it invites. You pause often, not from fatigue, but awe. This is not the gospel. It is not the rule. It is something else, still sacred, still careful, but alive in a different way. It hums behind your eyes. You hear her voice, not the words, but the tone. You imagine it round and low, shaped by breath and conviction, echoing in a stone chapel like your own. You wonder if she copied her own manuscripts, if her fingers cramped as yours now do. You flex your hand. The quill trembles slightly. Outside, rain begins to fall. A soft tapping on the windows, like distant footfalls. The room dims. Another monk rises and lights a lamp beside you. Its glow is gentle, golden. You nod in thanks. He returns to his station without a word. You continue. The next passage speaks of gardens, not earthly ones but symbolic. She writes of plants that sing, of herbs that weep, of the green force of life, viriditas, she calls it. You don't know the term, but the meaning seeps through. You imagine a garden in her convent. Damp soil, fragrant herbs, bees moving slowly through lavender, a woman in a black robe walking barefoot among them, listening. You glance at your own hands. They are ink-stained. Yours is not a life of barefoot walks. Yours is the life of transcription, of obedience, of silence. And yet, this moment feels shared. You copy a phrase slowly. The soul is symphony. You stop. Let the words rest in your mind. The bell will ring soon. You know it. You can feel it in your chest, like a second pulse. But you are not done yet. Not today. The lamp beside your desk flickers faintly. Outside, the rain has settled into a steady rhythm, gentle, like breath, pattering against the leaded glass. The scriptorium glows softly in the dimming light, rows of monks bent over parchment, eyes narrowed, hands still. The air smells of ink, wool, and wet stone. You turn the page. The text continues, and so do you. This section is a hymn, a vision transcribed into song. Though you cannot hear the music, Hildegard has notated it with symbols along the margin, strange and spidery, unlike the chant you know. You copy them too. Even if you do not understand them now, someone will. Perhaps in 100 years. Perhaps never. You keep your hand steady. Each line you inscribe, each mark, each curled S or extended R is made not for glory, not for praise, but because it must be done. The text is sacred, and sacred things are given time. You pause to rest your fingers. A slight ache creeps into your knuckles, so you clasp your hands together and stretch them slowly, silently. Across the room, a novice spills a drop of ink onto his sleeve. He frowns but says nothing. No one laughs. No one corrects him. He lifts a cloth, wipes the spot, and begins again. The lamp crackles beside you. Its glow pools on the parchment, catching the golden filigree that decorates Hildegard's margins. The color is faded, but still present, a reminder that beauty, too, can be devotion. You remember something the abbot said once during a meal reading, that some women, though locked behind convent walls, touched more minds with their words than many kings ever did. You hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now, with Hildegard's voice beneath your hand, you begin to understand. Her visions speak of balance, of harmony between earth and soul, of illness as disorder, of sound as healing. She writes not only for men of the cloth, but for those who suffer. Her words are a balm, not just for the mind, but for the body. You think of the infirmary, of Brother Caldus mixing tinctures in quiet corners, whispering prayers into warm cloth. You wonder if he knows her texts, if he's read her letters about herbs that sing when crushed, or the fire in fevered lungs that must be coaxed gently back to breath. Your eyes return to the page. You trace one line in particular with your finger before copying it. O ignis spiritus paracliti. O fire of the Spirit, Comforter. You copy it slowly, reverently. You do not always feel the Spirit. But today, with this pen, on this page, something quiet burns beneath your ribs, not a flame, a warmth. The rain stops. The scriptorium is quieter than before. The monks begin to close their manuscripts, pressing them flat, weighing them with stones. A few snuff their lamps. The bell has not yet rung, but the rhythm of the day continues without it. You finish your final line, carefully placing your quill beside the ink. You lift the page gently and set it in the drying rack. Then, without speaking, you blow out the lamp. Smoke rises in a slow spiral. It lingers near your face before drifting away. As you step into the corridor outside the scriptorium, the walls hum faintly from within. The words you've copied remain behind you, glowing faintly in the memory of the oil lamp's light. You may never see Hildegard's garden. You may never hear her music, but you have carried her voice through time, quietly, faithfully, and, for now, that is enough. Chapter 7. Relics Under the Floorboards. The chapel is dim, even in daylight. Candles burn low on either side of the altar. Their light shimmers against the stone walls, dancing in tiny ripples across carvings of saints and vinework. The windows are narrow, their glass faintly tinted with age. They do not invite light, they simply allow it. You sit in the far pew, back straight, hands folded in your lap. There is no service, no chanting, no one is speaking, and yet you are not alone. The abbot stands near the altar, speaking in hushed tones with a monk you do not recognize. The man is older, with a white cloak under his robe and shoes that are not from here. You think he might be a visitor from another order, one of those who guard relics. The word was whispered yesterday in the corridor. A relic has arrived. No fanfare, no announcement in the refectory. Just a quiet murmur passed from robe to robe, voice to voice. Something holy, they said. A fragment of a saint's body. A bone. Maybe a tooth. No one knows for certain. And no one asks. You glance toward the altar. A small reliquary rests there now. A glass vessel no longer than your palm, shaped like a tear, bound in silver at each end. It sits inside a shallow box lined with red velvet. The candlelight reflects from its surface like fire on water. You do not approach. Not yet. The abbot lifts the reliquary with both hands. He bows his head, says nothing aloud, then carries it down the aisle. You watch as he moves. Not quickly, but carefully, reverently. Every step is a ritual. He passes by your pew. You bow your head, not to him, but to what he carries. You sense something in the air shift. Not temperature, not scent, just presence. He reaches the front of the chapel and kneels before a section of the floor marked by a single tile, lighter than the rest. He presses his hand against it. It gives slightly, then lifts. Beneath it, a hollow chamber. Dust drifts up. You had heard of this place. A cavity beneath the chapel where relics are sometimes placed, hidden, protected, not displayed, just kept, because some things are not for eyes, only for memory. The abbot lowers the reliquary gently inside. He closes the tile. No words are spoken, no prayers are said, but something feels sealed, like breath caught in a chest. You remain seated, unmoving, even as the abbot and the visiting monk depart through a side door. The candles near the altar burn slightly lower now. Their flames seem more still. You rise slowly, walk forward. Not all the way to the altar, just far enough to see the tile where the reliquary now rests beneath your feet. You stand there. Close your eyes. You do not expect a sign. You do not expect warmth. You expect nothing. And yet, there is a quietness here. Not silence, not absence, but quietness, as if something sacred is listening. You remain there a while longer. Your sandals press against the worn stone tile, the one lighter than the others. The reliquary rests below your feet, but you no longer imagine it. You simply acknowledge it, like the breath of a candle, present even when unseen. Eventually, you step back. The chapel holds its stillness as you leave the altar behind. The rows of pews stretch out like furrows in a quiet field. The air has cooled. The candles flicker, and the soft creak of the old wooden doors reminds you how small your movements are in a place that has not changed for centuries. Outside, the corridor is darker than it was before. The windows let in the last gray-blue light of the afternoon. The bell for none has already rung. The brothers are gathering in the chapter room, but you are not due there yet. You're permitted time to walk the garden path once more, alone. You cross the cloister in silence. The pear tree leans gently in the wind. The herbs are still damp from the earlier rain. You trail a finger across a sprig of rosemary, then press the scent to your robe. You carry it with you down the outer corridor toward a lesser-known stairwell. This staircase leads below. Few monks come here. The cellar is rarely visited except during winter or feast preparations, but something draws you now, not curiosity exactly, something softer, a kind of quiet wondering. The steps are narrow, worn smooth at the center. You descend carefully. Your hand grazes the cold wall for balance. At the base, a small iron gate stands open. The air changes, cooler, older. You feel it on your cheeks before you see the room. The chamber is small. A single oil lamp flickers in a recess near the wall. The flame makes the shadows dance across a collection of wooden crates, barrels, and stone shelves. Most are filled with preserved vegetables, dried herbs, sealed bottles of sacramental wine. But near the far wall, something else stands out. A narrow shelf, barely wider than a hand. And on it, another reliquary. This one is older, duller in color, banded in brass rather than silver. Its glass is slightly clouded. You can just make out what lies within. A fragment of cloth, yellowed with time, folded tightly into a scroll no longer than a finger. Beneath it, a note in spidery script. From the garment of St. Galfred, carried from the East. No date, no signature, no fanfare, just cloth and story. You stand before it quietly. This relic, unlike the one above, was not sealed beneath a floor tile. It is not brought out for feast days. It is not placed near the altar. It is here, in a cellar with lentils and rosemary, where no one visits unless they must. And yet it remains. A memory, resting beside onions. You wonder how it came here. Who carried it? Who touched it last? Whether they believed it was sacred or simply hoped it might be. Whether they too stood in silence like this, unsure of what they felt, but unwilling to leave just yet. You step back. The lamplight bends against the glass. For a moment, you see your own reflection beside the relic. And then you turn. You climb the stairs again, slowly. When you return to the main corridor, the air feels warmer. The bells for Vespers begin to ring, one low tone after another, steady as heartbeat. You turn toward the chapel once more, but this time, you walk with the faint, comforting awareness that below the floor, and below that still, there is a quiet archive of belief. Unspoken, uncelebrated, but kept. Chapter 8. The Blood of Thomas Becket. The rain returns in the evening. You hear it begin as you sit in your cell, the faint pattering against the high-slit window above your cot. The candle flickers low beside you, its wax pooling along the base of the crucifix. The sky beyond the stone wall is nearly black, but the sound of the rain softens the darkness. It falls steady, without wind, more presence than storm. You are not reading tonight. Not a psalm, not the rule, not even Hildegard's vision. Tonight, you are copying from memory. A story told by Brother Matthias, passed on by a visiting prior, written down in pieces. It is not scripture, but it is sacred. You sharpen your quill slowly. The blade edge is dull, but serviceable. You press the parchment flat, brush away dust, and draw the first line carefully. Here begins the account of Thomas Becket, once Archbishop of Canterbury. You pause, then begin to write. The story, as you remember it, is strange in its simplicity. A man of rank, a friend of a king, given power, given voice, then a turn. He begins to speak not for the king, but for the church. His robes change, his tone deepens, he resists, he argues, he retreats, and finally, he is killed. Not in battle, not in secret, but in the very house of God. You write slowly, the quill scratching steadily across the parchment. On the 29th day of December, in the year of our Lord 1170, knights loyal to the king entered the cathedral. They shouted, they drew their swords. The archbishop did not flee. You pause again. You think of your own chapel, the worn pews, the echo of chant beneath the arch, the pale light across the altar. You try, briefly, to imagine violence in such a space. You cannot, and yet you must. The blow came first to his shoulder, then to his head. The blood fell on the stone. You do not describe it further. The brothers discourage such detail. Instead, you write, "The floor was red. The sound remained long after the shouting ceased." You sit back, quill in hand, and listen to the rain. Outside, the rhythm of the drops matches your breath. You close your eyes. You do not see Beckett's wounds. You see the stone, the altar, the moment after, the hush. The page before you is nearly half filled. You continue. Later, pilgrims came. They knelt where he fell. Some wept. Some claimed healing. Some left coins. Others left silence. The king, when told, said only, "Will no one rid me of this turbulent priest?" You write that line with care. It is not yours to judge. It is only yours to record. You stop once more, candlelight trembling on the page. You think of the relics hidden beneath your chapel, of the reliquary beneath the tile, of the fragment of St. Galfred's robe, of the silence that followed both. You wonder if, one day, a relic of Becket will rest here too, his hair perhaps, or a fragment of the bloodied stone, or if the story alone will be enough. You lift your candle, hold it over the ink to check for smudges. None. You continue writing, line by line, not with urgency, but with reverence. You do not know why this story matters more tonight, only that it does. The page is nearly full. You set your quill aside and gently lift the parchment. The ink glistens faintly, still drying. You hold it at an angle, just beyond the candle's reach, careful not to disturb the letters. Each line bears the weight of a man's final hour, written not with emotion, but with care. You are not writing a tale. You are bearing witness. You place the sheet in the drying rack. The cell grows darker. Your candle is nearing its end, the flame wavering now with every movement of air. The sound of the rain deepens. Less a tapping now, more a hush, like a blanket unfurling across the cloister roof. You pull your robe tighter and walk slowly toward the chapel, drawn by something you cannot quite name. The corridors are empty. Other monks have retired. Some may still be praying in their cells. Others reading. But none walk now. The only footsteps are yours. The stone beneath your feet is damp. Your sandals leave faint prints, temporary, fading with each step. You open the chapel doors without sound. Inside, the room is lit by only a few candles. One glows near the altar, one by the statue of St. Michael. The others have been left to burn out naturally, their wax pools along the floor in quiet halos. You step inside, breath held. There, you kneel. Your knees rest on the same stone that generations have touched, the same stone you imagined as red beneath Becket's broken body. But here, it is whole, cool, gray, silent. You bow your head, not in fear or sorrow, but in quiet solidarity. He died with conviction. You live under obedience. In this moment, both feel like surrender. You do not pray for him. You pray with him. You recite the final verse of Compline barely above a whisper. "Into your hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit." You remain kneeling long after the words fade. The candle flickers. The flame bends, leans, almost goes out, but it doesn't. It steadies. A thin curl of smoke drifts upward. Your thoughts begin to slow. You wonder what Beckett saw in those final seconds, whether he thought of his king, his friends, the echo of chant in the cathedral, whether he knew his blood would become legend, or whether he simply stopped. Not all saints burn bright. Some are quiet. Some resist without shouting. Some fall silently in sacred places. You rise and walk slowly back to your cell. The corridor holds a hush, as though the monastery has drawn a breath and forgotten to exhale. You pass the cloister garden, its herbs dark now, its path slick with rain. The pear tree glistens faintly. You pause a moment, then continue. Back in your cell, the candle has died. The smell of its extinguished wick lingers, sweet and faintly bitter. You lie down. Not to sleep, not yet, but to listen. The rain, the distant bell, struck once, the echo fading, and somewhere inside you, the rhythm of a story that will never leave the page again. Chapter 9. The Monastery's Secret Wealth. Morning returns in silence. The rain is gone, leaving behind a stillness that feels heavier than before. The chapel is cold again. The candles are fewer, the shadows longer. You rise from your straw cot and dress slowly, each movement deliberate, practiced, habit born of structure. You do not feel rested, but you feel prepared. In the monastery, that is more important. After lauds, your work does not take you to the scriptorium. Today, you are sent below. The abbot says little as always. He simply gestures, his hand turning slightly to the stairwell beneath the refectory. You know the place. You have passed it countless times, but you have never been asked to enter. You descend alone. The stairwell curves sharply, carved from the rock itself. The air is cooler here, but still. Each step echoes differently, as if the stone beneath you remembers other footsteps. You carry no candle. Light waits at the bottom, a faint glow from a row of oil lamps mounted to the wall. At the end of the stair, a heavy wooden door. Iron bands stretch across it like ribs. You knock once, then wait. The door opens from within. Brother Simric nods to you. He says nothing, just turns and walks deeper into the chamber. You follow. The room beyond is unlike any other in the monastery. Low-ceilinged, narrow, and dry. The air smells of wax, old leather, and metal. It is the vault. You had heard rumors, stories whispered in the dormitory, of jeweled chalices gifted by long-dead kings, of scrolls wrapped in silk, their seals unbroken, of coins stacked so high they require their own accounting, but you never believed them. Now, as you step forward, you understand. Here, beneath the feet of men who have vowed poverty, lies the weight of the world's wealth, not in piles or excess, but in careful order. Everything is labeled, everything catalogued, everything sealed. Brother Simric gestures toward a table. Upon it rests a silver cross. Dull with age, but unmistakably fine. Its center is inset with a red gem, perhaps a garnet, perhaps something rarer. He hands you a cloth and nods once. You begin to clean. You work in silence. Each rub of the cloth brings out a little more detail, engraved lines, faded Latin inscriptions, marks of ownership. This cross, you realize, once hung in a royal chapel. You wonder who kissed it last. Beside you, another table holds boxes. You glimpse the contents without staring. Rings, coins, seals, a dagger with a golden hilt, a bishop's signet ring. Relics, perhaps. Treasures, certainly. Yet none of it is displayed, none of it used. That is the monastery's quiet secret. The world above sees only robes, sandals, barley bread, but below, in the hush of stone and lamp smoke, the gifts of empires sleep in rows. You do not feel shame, nor pride, only stillness. You clean the cross until it gleams. Then return it to its velvet case, tying the cord twice as Brother Simric has shown. He takes it and places it on a shelf with 10 others. Their cases are unmarked. Only the brothers of this chamber know which is which. You are given a new task. Inventory. You carry a slate tablet and a worn quill. Brother Simric calls out the items and you make marks beside each name. He does not explain where they came from. You do not ask. This is not conversation. It is ritual. When the final item is checked, he nods. Your work is done. You bow slightly and walk back toward the stairs. No thanks are exchanged. No blessing given. But as you place your foot on the first step, you glance back, and for a brief moment, the thought crosses your mind. The monastery may be poor in comfort, but it is not poor in truth. It has seen kingdoms come and go, and here, in this chamber beneath prayer and ash and vow, those kingdoms leave their echoes behind. The lamp beside your desk flickers faintly. Outside, the rain has settled into a steady rhythm, gentle, like breath, pattering against the leaded glass. The scriptorium glows softly in the dimming light, rows of monks bent over parchment, eyes narrowed, hands still. The air smells of ink, wool, and wet stone. You turn the page. The text continues, and so do you. This section is a hymn, a vision transcribed into song. Though you cannot hear the music, Hildegard has notated it with symbols along the margin, strange and spidery, unlike the chant you know. You copy them, too. Even if you do not understand them now, someone will. Perhaps in 100 years. Perhaps never. You keep your hand steady. Each line you inscribe, each mark, each curled S or extended R is made not for glory, not for praise, but because it must be done. The text is sacred, and sacred things are given time. You pause to rest your fingers. A slight ache creeps into your knuckles, so you clasp your hands together and stretch them slowly, silently. Across the room, a novice spills a drop of ink onto his sleeve. He frowns but says nothing. No one laughs. No one corrects him. He lifts a cloth, wipes the spot, and begins again. The lamp crackles beside you. Its glow pools on the parchment, catching the golden filigree that decorates Hildegard's margins. The color is faded, but still present, a reminder that beauty, too, can be devotion. You remember something the abbot said once during a meal reading, that some women, though locked behind convent walls, touched more minds with their words than many kings ever did. You hadn't thought much of it at the time, but now, with Hildegard's voice beneath your hand, you begin to understand. Her visions speak of balance, of harmony between earth and soul, of illness as disorder, of sound as healing. She writes not only for men of the cloth, but for those who suffer. Her words are a balm, not just for the mind, but for the body. You think of the infirmary, of Brother Caldus mixing tinctures in quiet corners, whispering prayers into warm cloth. You wonder if he knows her texts, if he's read her letters about herbs that sing when crushed, or the fire in fevered lungs that must be coaxed gently back to breath. Your eyes return to the page. You trace one line in particular with your finger before copying it. O ignis spiritus paracliti. O fire of the Spirit, Comforter. You copy it slowly, reverently. You do not always feel the Spirit. But today, with this pen, on this page, something quiet burns beneath your ribs, not a flame, a warmth. The rain stops. The scriptorium is quieter than before. The monks begin to close their manuscripts, pressing them flat, weighing them with stones. A few snuff their lamps. The bell has not yet rung, but the rhythm of the day continues without it. You finish your final line, carefully placing your quill beside the ink. You lift the page gently and set it in the drying rack. Then, without speaking, you blow out the lamp. Smoke rises in a slow spiral. It lingers near your face before drifting away. As you step into the corridor outside the scriptorium, the walls hum faintly from within. The words you've copied remain behind you, glowing faintly in the memory of the oil lamp's light. You may never see Hildegard's garden. You may never hear her music, but you have carried her voice through time, quietly, faithfully, and, for now, that is enough. Chapter 10. The Abbot's Table. The sun is low when the invitation comes. You are walking near the garden wall, trimming herbs into a woven basket, when Brother Elric approaches. His robe is dusted with flour from the kitchen, and his hands smell faintly of honey and smoke. He says nothing at first, just holds out a folded scrap of parchment, sealed with wax. You bow your head and accept it. There is no name on the outside. Inside, the message is brief. You are to assist at the abbot's table this evening. Clean robe, washed hands, no speaking unless spoken to. You read it twice, not out of confusion, but disbelief. You've never been called to serve there before. The abbot's table is not like the long benches in the refectory where the brothers eat lentils and barley. It is a separate space, half visible through the open arch where guests of high rank sometimes dine. Bishops, priors, nobles, pilgrims of unusual wealth. Tonight, it seems, there will be such company again. You return to your cell in quiet haste. You lay your best robe across your cot and brush it carefully. It's no finer than the others, but it is newer, less worn at the cuffs. You wash your hands slowly in the cold basin, scrubbing beneath your nails, even though no one will inspect. The candle is already lit. You do not speak aloud, but you find yourself repeating the rule in your mind. Let the younger serve the elder with humility. As the bell for supper rings, you walk to the refectory but do not enter. Instead, you take the narrow hall beside it that leads to the guest chamber. Here, the walls are warmer, the floors cleaner. Fresh rushes have been laid. Beeswax candles glow at every corner, their flames taller and steadier than the ones in the dormitory wing. A subtle fragrance lingers, something floral, perhaps lavender pressed into linen. Brother Elric meets you at the threshold. He hands you a tray of wine cups and whispers a single word. Slowly. Then you step inside. The abbot is already seated at the head of the table. His robe is finer than yours, embroidered subtly at the collar with gold thread. On either side of him sit 3 guests. You do not recognize them. One wears the red cloak of a cardinal, another a gray tabard marked with the seal of a southern lord. The third is younger, dressed in dark wool, his face calm, unreadable. No one looks at you. That is good. You lower your eyes and move with practiced care, setting each cup before the guests in a precise rhythm. The wine is warm, spiced, sweetened with honey. You smell it as you pour, not the bitter ale of the refectory. This is for men who have not knelt for hours on stone. The meal is served in courses. You do not eat. You move between the kitchen and the table, carrying platters of roasted roots, stewed pheasant, bread braided in rounds. The smell fills the chamber, rich, savory, unreal compared to your usual fare. Your stomach does not protest. You have trained it to wait. The men speak, but their voices are low. Politics, titles, travel. You catch fragments. The bishop at Chartres. 3 horses drowned in the crossing. He refused the charter unless... The abbot speaks rarely. When he does, the others listen. You notice how his tone shifts from what you know, a soft, measured cadence, to something firmer. He speaks with weight, authority. He does not chant, he commands. You refill his cup once. He does not thank you, but his eyes flick toward you briefly, not with approval, but recognition. And perhaps that is more. Chapter 10. The Abbot's Table. Segment 2. You continue moving in quiet service. The dishes change. Now glazed carrots in thick butter, now salted fish laid out on fresh green leaves, each one carefully arranged. Nothing like the communal bowl of turnips and barley you shared yesterday. No scraping of spoons, no half-baked loaves, no ale so thin it tastes like river water. You do not envy the food. But you observe it. Because here, behind the abbot's chair, beside the cloaked guests, you see how the monastery shifts, how it wears a different face when outsiders arrive. The rule is not broken, but it bends. For visitors, for power, for appearances. The conversation darkens, not in tone, but in depth. You begin to hear names, noble houses, towns at the edge of the kingdom, bishops who resist taxation, abbeys that harbor too many strangers. One guest, the man in gray, leans forward and murmurs something you cannot hear. The abbot replies softly, "It is noted." His hand never leaves the cup. You refill the bread tray. The younger guest, the one in dark wool, glances at you. Not coldly, not kindly, just briefly. He seems younger than the others, but speaks less. He listens well, and that alone tells you he is powerful. One guest raises a question about the cellar. Not the wine cellar, the other one, the vault. Your hand pauses briefly, ladle midair, but no one notices. The abbot does not blink. He does not tense. He only lifts his cup and replies, "It is secure." Then, calmly, "Its contents grow more refined with time." They nod, they do not press, and the meal continues. Eventually, the final course arrives, figs soaked in wine, cloves, and cinnamon. You have never tasted a fig. You do not expect to, but their scent is rich, dense, like firewood at dusk. You lay the dish on the table and step back. The candles are lower now, the room dimmer. You stand at the edge, near the wall, as the conversation fades into a slower rhythm. Short phrases, quiet questions, hands lingering on warm cups. The night has deepened, but none prepare to leave. The abbot turns to the youngest guest and asks a question, voice low, "And you? Will you stay long?" The guest replies, "Long enough to be remembered." A pause, then a murmur of laughter, not forced, not loud, but practiced. You're asked to bring warm cloths. Brother Aelric hands them to you in the corridor, their scent herbal, marjoram, mint, lemon balm. You carry them in gently and place them near the guest's hands. It is not your job to wipe or clean. Only to bring, only to serve. As the evening draws on, the abbot begins to close the meal, not with words, but with motion. He rises, the others follow. You open the side door into the courtyard where torches flicker in iron sconces. The guests exit without comment, their cloaks brushing past your shoulder like heavy wind. Then it is quiet again. The dishes remain. The table is stained with grease and crumbs and wine. You begin to clear it, plate by plate, cup by cup, not quickly, but with the same reverence you copy scripture. This, too, is ritual. Brother Aelric returns and helps in silence. Together you carry trays down the hall and into the scullery. The stone floor is wet. A basin of water waits. You wash each piece gently, running your hands over the gold filigree on the abbot's goblet, the smooth rim of the fig bowl, the carving on a guest's wooden spoon. You wonder if these pieces were made here, or if they were sent. Gifts from nobles, tokens from benefactors, offerings made not for piety but for favor. You dry each one with linen. When the last dish is shelved and the water poured into the garden drain, Brother Aelric turns to you and says only this: "He noticed your silence." You nod. It is the highest praise you will receive. You return to your cell past Compline. No one is in the halls. The windows show stars now, quiet and cold. You open your door, undress, and lay your robe across the foot of your cot. Your candle is still burning, low but steady. You lie back. Your fingers ache, not from ink, but from labor. Your ears echo not with chant, but with the voices of guests and nobles and power cloaked in quiet tone. You think of the abbot, sitting so still at the head of the table, speaking only when needed, withholding when not. And you wonder, what did he see in you tonight? What list was your name added to? For advancement? For caution? For replacement? You do not know. You will never know. You close your eyes and breathe in the last of the candle's scent. It smells of beeswax, wine, and a question you cannot ask. Chapter 11. The Midnight Procession. It begins before the bell. You are already awake. The hour is unmarked. The usual rhythm of the monastery, meals, psalms, copying, cleaning, is paused. There is no candle lit in your cell, no sound of sandals in the hallway. Only the wind pressing against the old wooden shutters and the faint creak of beams overhead. You lie beneath your blanket, eyes open, unsure why you woke, but knowing something has shifted. And then, faintly, it comes. One bell. Low, not from the belfry above, but from deeper below, an interior place. It rings once, then falls silent. It is not the tone of matins or lauds or vespers. This bell is different, heavier, older. It is a summons, but not for all. You sit up slowly. The room is dark, but you know it well enough now to find your robe without hesitation. The floor is cold, the air sharper than usual. You dress in silence, pulling the fabric over your head, tying the rope around your waist. You do not light your candle. You do not need to. The hallway outside your door is lit by a single lantern resting on a stone shelf, the flame within barely holding against the dark. You are not alone. Shadows move ahead of you. Robes, bare feet, silent steps, no words spoken. The other monks do not look back. They do not glance at you. They simply walk forward, turning at the same stairwell that descends below the chapel. You follow, not because you understand, but because you are meant to. The staircase spirals downward, each step slightly worn in the center. You grip the stone wall with one hand, steadying yourself as you descend. The further down you go, the colder it becomes. Moisture clings to the walls. The scent of wax, mold, and something older, dust perhaps, or stone soaked in centuries of breath, fills the air. At the bottom, the crypt waits. You have been here only once before, during your earliest days as a novice. A tour, a warning, a place of reverence. You remember the way voices did not echo but vanished into the walls. Now, a dozen monks gather there, holding lanterns and candles. No chant begins, no prayer is spoken. They simply move in quiet unison to a circle near the center, around an old iron brazier. The abbot is already there. He stands with his hands clasped in front of him, eyes closed, his breath visible in the lamplight. A procession is forming. You do not know its purpose. No name was announced, no brother declared dead, no visitor arrived today, but still the silence holds weight. The monks arrange themselves in pairs. You fall into line beside Brother Izarn, a man so quiet even his footsteps seem to soften the stone. The abbot lifts his hand, and the first candle is lit. One by one, the flames are passed from hand to hand until each monk carries light. It is a dim, flickering procession, more glow than fire, more memory than movement. The abbot turns, leads the way down a narrow side passage within the crypt, deeper still into the monastery's foundation. You pass walls covered in faint carvings, symbols older than Latin, etched by hands long forgotten. At the end of the passage is a chamber you have never entered. Here there is no altar, no benches, only a flat stone slab in the center of the room and a shallow basin carved into the wall. The air is thick with the scent of burning oil. Small clay vessels line the shelves, each sealed with wax. You count them quickly, 40, maybe more. Some are labeled, some are not. The monks begin to hum. Not a chant. Not words. Just a sound, low, continuous, rising and falling in slow waves. The vibration of it seems to settle into your bones. You do not understand the purpose. You are not meant to. You are only meant to participate. One of the elders steps forward, kneels beside the stone slab, and sets his candle in a small notch at its corner. He closes his eyes and remains there. Another follows, then another. When it is your turn, you step forward, unsure. You kneel, set your candle in place, and as your hands leave it, you feel a draft pass across your face, cooler than before. Not wind, not breath, just motion, as though something has shifted in the air around you. Not a presence, not a voice, only motion. But you feel it. You remain kneeling. No one speaks. The humming rises, then falls, then fades. The abbot speaks one word, but not in Latin. You do not recognize it. It is old, maybe Celtic, maybe nothing at all, just sound, but it marks the end. The monks begin to rise one by one, retrieving their candles, stepping back into the passage without turning. You follow, back through the carved hallway, back past the sealed vessels and old symbols, back into the open crypt, where the coffins rest under heavy slabs. One monk stays behind. You do not know who. He will return later, or perhaps stay. You ascend the stairwell slowly, the cold air rising with you. The lanterns flicker. No one speaks. At the top of the steps, the monks disperse without word, returning to their cells as if none of it occurred. But you feel it in your body, in the way your breath slows, the way your skin still tingles slightly, the way silence now feels like company. You return to your cell. Lie down. Eyes wide open. You do not sleep right away. Instead, you wait for the last of the cold to leave the soles of your feet. Sleep does not come easily. You lie in your cell, listening to the faint sounds of stone settling. The monastery is utterly still, the kind of stillness that feels thick, like cloth pressed over the world. You imagine the path you just walked, the descent into the crypt, the flicker of the candles, the humming in your bones. It replays in your mind not as memory, but as dream. You blink slowly. Your breath is long and even. Your hands are folded gently on your chest, just as they were during the procession. You think of the sealed jars in the crypt, the wax, the carved initials, the unlabeled ones too. What do they hold? Dust from ancient robes? Ashes of a brother whose name was never recorded? Soil from Jerusalem? You know better than to ask. Some things are not for questions. Some things are for silence only. When the first bell of the morning sounds hours later, it is as if you never slept. You rise slowly, robe heavy from the chill, and wrap it tighter around your shoulders. The corridor outside your cell is lit by early blue light, dull and cold. The windows still hold a sheen of condensation. The air tastes of stone and ash. The other monks pass you quietly on the way to the chapel. No one makes eye contact. Not because of rudeness, because they too carry the weight of the night. You realize, walking among them, that most of them were not part of the procession. Only a few. And those few say nothing. The rule does not instruct you to keep secrets, but it teaches you to recognize what must be held inside. Matins is shorter than usual. The abbot's voice is slower, less firm. He does not raise his hand during the final psalm. He does not glance around. He reads, as if he is reading for himself alone. The brothers chant more quietly, as if they are aware of the echo that remains in the stones beneath their feet. After the service, you walk the cloister alone. The garden has begun to frost. The last leaves on the pear tree are curled, thin, rimmed in silver. The air is so still that you hear a single acorn drop from the roof tiles above and bounce twice on the flagstones. You pause and listen longer, but nothing follows. You find yourself seated again on the stone bench beneath the fourth arch, the same place you always return to when your thoughts move without direction. You think of Brother Odo, who once sat here daily. He passed 2 winters ago. You think of Brother Mathieu, whose name was never spoken aloud after his disappearance. Only his sandals were found at the river's edge. You wonder if the jar without a label is his. The garden doesn't answer, but it doesn't push you away either. Later in the morning, you're assigned to candle maintenance. You work in the south wing, scraping cooled wax from the altar holders and remelting old stubs. It is quiet work, satisfying in its rhythm. You drop a wick into a fresh mold and wait for the surface to set. The room smells of oil, heat, and faint lavender from the last feast day. Brother Simric enters briefly. He says nothing, but places a box on the table beside you. Inside are fresh candles, unused, tall, with braided cotton wicks. You're not sure if they are for the chapel or the crypt. You don't ask. You simply nod and begin replacing them in order of height. When he leaves, you pause and place your hands flat on the work table. You feel the texture of cooled wax beneath your palms, the smooth grain of the wood. A faint draft from the window brushes your fingertips. Something has changed. You do not know what. Not something loud or dramatic, but something in the rhythm. The monastery moves forward as it always has. Prayers are chanted, meals are taken. Ink is spilled on parchment. The abbot passes through the hallways, robes trailing slightly slower than usual. But everything continues. That is the mystery of the monastery. It changes while appearing unchanged. That night, during Compline, you light the final row of candles before the service begins. The flame catches easily. Each wick burns clean, steady. You step back into the shadows and take your place. As the brothers begin to sing the final psalm, your voice joins without effort, but your mind drifts. Not far, not dangerously, but just enough. You picture the procession again, the faces half-lit by lanterns, the feeling of a draft where no door was open, the weight of one word spoken in a language no longer taught. You remember your candle's flame, how it bent slightly as you knelt, not from wind, from something else. You close your eyes as the last note fades. You do not seek answers. You do not name what you felt. You simply carry it, quietly, patiently, like a candle waiting to be lit again. Chapter 12. Dust, Ink, and Eternity. The light in the scriptorium has changed. It's thinner now. It pours in with less strength through the narrow windows and rests softer on the wooden tables. It doesn't warm the room. It only reveals dust, floating motes that turn golden when they drift too close to the candles. You sit in your usual place, but the way you hold the quill has changed. Your hand trembles slightly. The muscles cramp faster than they used to. The calluses that once cushioned your fingers have grown thin. You've begun wrapping a strip of cloth around your knuckle to ease the ache. You dip the quill into the ink pot and resume copying a passage from the book of Ecclesiastes. All is vanity, you write. All is chasing after wind. You pause, not because of the words, but because you know exactly where they are going. You have copied this book before, several times. The words are no longer ideas. They are grooves worn deep into your memory. When you close your eyes at night, you sometimes hear them echo, not with sound, but with form. They rise in the air like carved letters, faint and gold-edged, hovering in the dark. Around you, younger monks copy more quickly. Their strokes are neater, more confident. They ask fewer questions than you did at their age, perhaps because they're more certain, or perhaps because they know that questions are best kept quiet. You watch them for a moment, their heads bent low, their backs still straight, their breathing even. You were like them once, but now your back aches after only an hour. The light feels sharper. You squint even with the candles close. Sometimes, when you write, you find yourself blinking more than before, trying to force the blur away. The abbot has noticed. He has not said anything. But 2 days ago he sent Brother Malric to help with illuminations. Malric is skilled, young. He draws vines around initials with careful strokes. You admire his steadiness. You do not feel replaced, only continued. Today, you are asked to train one of the novices. His name is Luca. He has barely passed his first year, small in frame, quiet in speech. You show him how to cut the quill, shaving it down at an angle, pressing gently to test the split. You teach him how to blot without smudging, how to breathe while writing, not holding the breath, not rushing it, just breathing through the letters. He listens carefully. He makes mistakes, but he does not flinch. When he asks how long it takes to copy a full gospel, you answer without hesitation. 3 months, if your hand stays strong. 5, if it doesn't. He nods slowly, as if trying to measure that time in his mind. You smile softly and add, but you don't count the months. You count the pages. By midday, your fingers are stiff. You wash them in cool water at the basin near the rear wall. The water is dark with ink. Your reflection, faint in the surface, shows tired eyes. You dry your hands on a cloth that smells of oil and old lavender. Your robe is stained at the cuffs, the sleeves fraying just slightly at the edges. The parchment you finished today rests in the drying rack. You scan the page one last time. The spacing is good, the script even. The final line reads, "To everything there is a season." You leave the scriptorium early this afternoon. The abbot has granted it. He tells you kindly that your eyes must rest. You do not argue. You bow your head, place your quill back in its holder, and walk the long hallway toward the west wing. It is quieter there, fewer duties, more windows. You pass the library. You remember when it was fuller, when carts of manuscripts arrived from distant houses, when books were unwrapped with care, their spines cracked open like treasure boxes. Now, fewer books arrive, fewer copies are sent out. The world changes. Outside these walls, printed texts are beginning to whisper of faster hands, of machines. But not here, not yet. You step into the garden. The air smells of cooling earth, of damp stone, of smoke from the kitchen chimney. The cloister arches cast long shadows now, taller than you remember. You sit beneath them and close your eyes. You do not fall asleep. You listen. To the birds. To the distant chime of the refectory bell. To the sound of Luca, perhaps, still bent over the psalter you handed him earlier. The future is already learning your movements. And that, strangely, brings peace. The next morning, you rise before the bell. There are days when sleep escapes you not because of discomfort, but because of stillness. When the silence presses down in such a way that the line between rest and wakefulness disappears entirely. You dress slowly, folding your blanket with more care than usual, smoothing the wool against the cot. The robe you pull over your head has been patched 3 times now. You remember doing the last one yourself, stitching by candlelight after Vespers, the thread pulled tight between fingers that could no longer hold a needle without shaking. You light a candle in your cell before dawn and open the wooden box that rests beneath your cot. Inside are your oldest tools. Your first quill, its edge too soft now to write. Your first inkstone worn almost flat from years of grinding. A page of scripture with a single error in the second line kept not out of pride, but as a reminder of how slowly humility is learned. You lift the page now and read the line you once got wrong. It speaks of mercy. You smile at that. When the bell finally rings, you are already at your desk in the scriptorium. The others file in, bleary-eyed, whispering no words. They know better. They carry their tools to their stations and begin their work, shoulders hunched, mouth set in quiet determination. Luca enters last. He greets you with a nod, one you return. You have not been asked to copy today. Instead, your name has been added to the teaching ledger. You are now the one who gives instruction in the preparation of parchment, the mixing of ink, the shaping of glyphs. The young brothers gather around your desk as you lay out the materials: crushed oak galls, iron salts, vinegar, charcoal dust. Your voice is even, low. You speak with the rhythm of someone who has said these words before, though not aloud. You teach them to stir the ink with slow circles, never too fast, to test it on a scrap before using it, to wipe the quill clean between lines. You remind them of how a smudge at the wrong moment can destroy a morning's work. You remind them not to grow frustrated. Frustration bends letters. Frustration ruins script. Luca listens intently, his hands clasped behind his back. He watches everything: your movements, your breaths, the way you touch the paper before writing. His fingers are inkless still, but you see in him what the abbot must already know. He will copy many books in his life. Later in the day, while the novices continue their training, you are called to the library. Brother Theodoric is waiting. He is frail now, his body leaning slightly forward as he walks. His voice is soft, like old paper turning in wind. He gestures to a shelf near the rear wall where 3 large volumes sit wrapped in linen. The abbey in Normandy has requested transcriptions, he says. The work will take months. He has spoken to the abbot, and you have been given the responsibility of reviewing the texts for accuracy, not copying them, approving them. You pause. The weight of that task settles slowly on your shoulders. It is not a promotion. It is a transition. You are no longer the hands that write. You are now the eyes that see. You accept without hesitation, because in the monastery, nothing is yours. Not the desk, not the text, not the knowledge, only your posture within it. You spend the afternoon reading one of the volumes. It is a book of hours, prayers marked by time, illuminated by a hand steadier than yours has ever been. The colors are still vibrant, the margins alive with delicate vines and curling beasts and golden suns. You hold the book in gloved hands and flip each page slowly, your eyes studying every line. You do not rush. You do not finish it today. You return it to its place on the shelf and step out into the late-day light. The cloister is quiet. The pear tree, now bare, creaks slightly in the wind. You sit on the same bench as always, your back no longer straight, your knees stiff. You remember your first week here. The robe too large, the silence too vast, the cold too sharp. You remember stumbling over Latin chants, holding a quill like it might bite, feeling hunger during every fast. And now the hunger is different. It is not for food or warmth or praise. It is for peace, continuity, the knowledge that your hours were spent turning pages that might one day outlast you. That night, after Compline, you return to your cell and sit beside the candle. You pick up a blank page and write one line, not from scripture, not from the rule, just one line of your own, in a hand slower than before. I was here. I wrote. I remembered. You do not sign it. You fold it, press it between the pages of an old ledger, and return to your cot. Outside, the wind rises slightly, brushing along the roof tiles. The monastery does not sleep. It breathes. Chapter 13. When the bell no longer rings. The bell no longer wakes you. It rings, as it always has, soft, measured, exact in its timing, but your body rises before it now. Not from anxiety, not from duty, but from rhythm. You do not open your eyes with urgency. You do not pull yourself upright with stiffness. Instead, you simply sit, already aware of the shape of the morning around you. the light on the wall, the weight of your robe, the echo of your own breath against the cold stone. Your cell looks no different, but you know it has changed. You no longer store quills beneath your cot. Your parchment shelf is empty now, handed over to Luca and the other novices. The wooden box at the foot of your bed remains, but its contents are fewer. Just a cloth-wrapped prayer book, 2 folded pages, and a candle stub you've chosen not to replace. You move slowly now. There is no shame in that. The brothers have come to expect it. When you pass through the hallway after matins, no one waits for you to lead. They greet you with nods, quiet gestures, the occasional soft murmur of Pax Tecum. Peace be with you. You do not answer aloud. Your silence says it all. The abbot has grown slower, too. You see him more often seated now, by the fire in the south cloister in the corner of the chapel, his hands folded not in command, but in rest. He no longer reads from the lectern. His voice has faded, though not his presence. He smiles more now, faint and inward, as if content with watching others carry the rule forward. You take your breakfast in the same corner of the refectory. Barley bread, lentil mash, water thick with steam, the same meal for decades. But today, you pause with each bite. You chew slowly. You let your hands rest between movements. You watch the others, not out of judgment, not from distance, but from the quiet edge of memory. You remember when Brother Rule first spilled his bowl, when Luca wrote his first line without blotting the ink, when Brother Theodoric fell asleep during the reading of Ecclesiastes, his head bobbing gently with each verse. These are the things you carry now. Not the letters, not the pages, but the weight of memory. After the meal, you return not to the scriptorium, but to the library. The shelves are thinner now. Many texts have been sent to other houses, some copied, some sealed away. A few of the older volumes have crumbled at their spines. You walk past them, hand brushing the edges of the bindings. You stop at a volume you last read 2 winters ago. A psalter bound in goat leather. Your name is written in faint ink on the back page. You pull it down, sit at the reading bench. You do not open it right away. Instead, you stare at the wood grain of the desk, at the grooves worn by hands like yours. You breathe in the dust, the soft smell of old vellum, the ever-present smoke from the nearby brazier. Then, slowly, you turn the pages. The words are familiar, the illustrations fading, but the silence between the verses holds more than ever. A younger monk enters quietly. He bows when he sees you, then takes a seat nearby. He reads without speaking. You don't recognize his name, but you know the way his fingers move across the page. Careful, reverent, tracing the lines before the eye follows. You smile faintly, though you know he does not see. The bell rings for terce. You do not rise. Instead, you remain in the library turning pages, letting the hour pass like smoke through lattice work. No one comes to fetch you. No one expects you to rush. You are no longer the one who must copy, or lead, or speak. You are the quiet part of the monastery now. The echo in the stone, the breath in the scriptorium, the faint perfume of lavender in the folds of a robe long untouched. Later, as the sun crosses the cloister garden, you sit by the statue of Saint Benedict. You've returned here often in recent weeks. The mint still grows at his feet. The vines still curl around his sandals. His hand remains raised in blessing, though the stone has softened with time. You sit on the bench beneath him and feel the warmth of the sun on your back. A novice passes by and bows to you. He does not interrupt. He keeps walking. You are grateful for the silence, for the light, for the weight of all that you no longer need to hold. Evening falls slowly now. The sun lingers a little longer at the horizon, spreading gold across the stone walls, painting the arches with light so soft it barely seems real. You sit in the chapel, long before vespers, when the candles are not yet lit, and the air smells only of dust and age. You rest on the second bench from the back. your usual seat in these later years, close enough to hear the chant, far enough to disappear into its rhythm. The monks enter one by one. You know each footfall by now. Brother Malric always favors his right. Luca breathes through his nose when he walks. The abbot's steps are nearly silent now, but you still feel the slight change in air as he passes. No one glances your way. They know you are here, just as they know you will remain after they have gone. You do not chant tonight. Your voice has grown thin, not from disuse but from gentleness. It trembles when pushed too far. Instead, you close your eyes and listen as the others begin. Low, rich, steady, the Latin flows over you like warm water. You mouth the words without sound. The memory of them, the taste of them, is enough. After the final psalm fades, the brothers bow and exit. A few linger to snuff the candles. You remain, always, until the last light is gone. Tonight, Brother Simric pauses at the door. He watches you for a moment. You nod once. He bows in return and leaves without a word. You sit in the darkness, not because you are lost in thought, but because you have become thought itself, drifting, slow, embedded in the walls like soot in old stone. Eventually, you rise. The floor is cold underfoot, even through your sandals. You make your way through the halls in near darkness, guided by habit, by years of repetition. You pass the refectory, silent now. The kitchens, the cloister, where the wind stirs the ivy just once, like a breath through a sleeping body. In your cell, a candle waits. It is already lit. You do not remember lighting it, and perhaps you didn't. Perhaps Brother Luca did, in his quiet way. Perhaps it was the abbot, or no one at all. The flame is small, but it burns. You sit by the desk and lift the old ledger you tucked away weeks ago. Your handwriting appears in the margin, notes made decades ago, when you still hesitated before each stroke. You smile at the awkward slant of your letters. So careful, so uncertain. Now, your hand can barely manage a signature, but it remembers this shape, this motion. You open to the back. There, between two blank pages, rests the line you wrote last week. I was here. I wrote. I remembered. You add one more. I was silent. Then you close the book. Fold the pages once more. Blow out the candle. Sleep that night comes easily. Not deep, not long, but clean. Untroubled. You wake just before dawn to a sound you've heard all your life. A single bell, rising through the floor like a call from the bones of the earth. But this time, you do not rise. Not from refusal, but because someone else does. You hear footsteps in the hallway, bare, deliberate, young. Someone else walks now to the chapel. Someone else fills your place in the bench. Someone else prepares the ink. You lie back. The blanket is warm. The cot still holds the curve of your body. Your hands rest atop your chest, fingers gently interlaced. You do not move. You do not need to. Later, they will knock on your door and find the candle burned out. The book closed. The robe neatly folded. They will speak softly in the hallway. The abbot will nod. Brother Luca will light a candle by your name. In the scriptorium, your last letter will remain uncorrected. In the library, the pages you reviewed will remain bound. And in the chapel, long after the last chant of the day has faded, the silence will still sound like your prayer. Chapter 14. The Candle in the Library. The door creaks softly as it opens. The library is dim, lit by only a single candle left burning overnight. Its flame wavers gently in the still air, casting long shadows that stretch across the floor like ribbons. The shelves loom taller in this hour, their shapes indistinct, their contents asleep. Even the pages seem to breathe slower, as if waiting. It is Brother Luca who enters. His footsteps are soft, but confident. He carries a small bundle under one arm, a folded cloth, a new sheet of parchment, a capped ink vial. His fingers still bear the faint stains of yesterday's practice. He walks past the first row of shelves, past the reading table, and stops before a particular volume resting on the lowest shelf near the rear wall. He kneels, not in prayer exactly, but in reverence. This is the ledger, the one you once wrote in, the one you closed the night before your final sleep. It rests where you left it, still bound in worn leather, the edges curled slightly from years of use. Brother Luca opens it slowly, careful not to disturb the thin fibers of the oldest pages. He flips gently past the entries in your hand. Your script is unmistakable, narrow, even, unrushed. He reads the final lines again, as he has done each morning since your passing. I was here. I wrote. I remembered. I was silent. Then he turns to the next page. It is blank. He places his bundle on the floor, unwraps the cloth, lays out the tools with care, dips the quill once, tests the ink on a scrap, then lowers it to the waiting parchment, and begins. His hand trembles slightly at first. The letters are not perfect, but they hold a rhythm, a truth, a beginning. Outside, the sky begins to lighten. The monastery roof catches the first pale silver of dawn. In the scriptorium, other novices begin to stir. You are not there, but your presence is, on the shelves, in the margin notes, in the slight tilt of each letter taught by your hand. The candle in the library flickers once, then steadies, and the ink begins again. Brother Luca writes slowly. Not because he lacks confidence, but because the moment demands it. His strokes are deliberate, the quill moving with intention across the clean page. There is no noise in the library but the soft rhythm of ink meeting parchment and the occasional creak of old wood settling. The candle beside him burns low, its flame reflecting in the curve of the ink vial, making the glass glisten like morning dew. He writes not a story, not scripture, not the rule. He writes a record of the seasons past, of the monks who came and went, of the last harvest, the frost that came early, the illness that spared many but not all. His words are not poetic. They are careful, spare, true, and between each line there is silence, a silence you once taught him to keep. The hours pass unnoticed. By the time he finishes the final sentence, the sun has risen beyond the chapel's spire, casting golden light across the floor of the library. It finds the shelf where the ledger rests. It touches the spine, and then it moves on, sliding upward, illuminating a strip of dust suspended in air. Luca leans back. He reads over his words, not to admire them, but to check their honesty. He smiles once, briefly, then blots the ink and folds the cloth around his tools. The candle sputters. Its wax has pooled fully, and soon it will die. But he does not rush. He closes the ledger, returns it to its place. Then he stands. His knees creak slightly, a sound he once heard from you when you rose from the same bench. He places his hand briefly on the spine of the book, a gesture not of possession, but of acknowledgement. Then he turns and walks toward the door. As he passes the threshold, he pauses. Just once, he looks back at the candle. It gives one final flutter of light as if bowing, then fades into a thin trail of smoke. He leaves it behind. Because there are other candles now. In the chapel, monks gather for the morning psalms. Their voices rise softly, not perfectly aligned, but close. The chant is an old one you copied dozens of times in your youth. The air is cool, clean, still touched with the perfume of frankincense and melted wax. Luca takes his seat beside Brother Simric, who now serves in the abbot's stead. He joins the chant. His voice is strong, but never loud, measured, gentle. He has learned not just the words, but the spaces between them. In the scriptorium, other novices have begun their day's work. They grind ink in slow circles, mix powders with vinegar, cut their quills at an angle you once taught with steady hands. One of them hums softly, something ancient, a tone passed ear to ear, not written down, but remembered in the body. The monastery endures. Its bells still ring. Its books still multiply. Its stones still hold warmth in the afternoon sun. But somewhere, in the folds of a novice's robe, or in the rhythm of a new line copied with care, or in the final breath of a candle's smoke, you remain. Not as name, not as monument, but as rhythm, as silence, as the line between one chant and the next. And now, as the candles fade and the stone walls grow still, we leave the monastery behind. Its bells will ring again tomorrow, and its pages will be turned by hands yet to come. If this journey through silence and history helped you find a little peace, or perhaps even helped you drift off to sleep, I invite you to stay with us. There are many more quiet stories waiting. Subscribe to The Drowsy Historian, and let sleep come gently, wrapped in the calm of the past. Good night.